So I just had something interesting happen that I thought I wanted to share with you guys. All right. And this is really relating to your dating journey and making improvements and thinking that you need to feel that you're 100% confident all the time or that you have everything together in your head the right way to be able to effectively date. All right. Because I think that people think, you're going to learn a bunch of dating stuff and then you're just going to be fine. Like once you know women, you're never going to feel self-conscious about anything. You're going to always be knowing exactly what to do right. And there's going to be times where you're still going to feel some apprehension and some anxiety, and you're going to have to fight past that to see what the reality is of the moment and realize that just because you're seeing or feeling a certain thing doesn't mean that that's accurate. So I'll give you a little backstory of what I'm talking about, right? So back in the day, I grew up in a household where my mom, as loving as she was, she didn't really like to go out a whole lot. And part of that was because when she was growing up, she was taught not to be a bother to people and not to overstay a welcome and not be a burden to people, right? So then flash forward to us, we get taught as kids like, hey, like don't try to over ask for things and make sure that, you're not trying to outstay your welcome, and that sometimes people will say that they want to do things for you, but they really don't want to because they don't want to hurt your feelings. But then like you got to really be aware that that's a thing and then know to like get yourself out of situations where you feel as though they may not necessarily want you there because they don't want to be mean to you and say that they don't want you there, right? So then when I get into my dating life, there's a point where women start being nice to me and women start paying attention to me and actually enjoying my company. And part of my training growing up was that's not always a real thing, or they may not always want you around in that moment. And so I had to do a lot of years of work to be able to get to a point where I said, hey, if women are saying they want you around realistically, they want you around. If they're saying they like spending time with you, that's what they mean. They're not trying to like do this double speak or whatever. I think a lot of guys grow up like that where they get to a point where women start paying them attention, but they've had so many years of being rejected that they don't initially believe it. So I bring all this up because I'm going down to my best friend's nephew's play, and him and his parents live in San Diego, right? So I told my friend's brother-in-law that I was going to come down to see his son in this play. He's in a high school play. And so he texted me back saying, hey, that's great. Oh, by the way, if you want to stay over the night, you're welcome to do so. And again, I've done years of work, right? I'm very aware that people enjoy my company, that people want me around. And there was still a part of me that said, but am I going to actually be a burden to them if I accept this invitation? Like, are they giving the invitation just because it's nice? Because I'm driving down from LA to San Diego to see them. Do they think that, well, they're now obligated to invite me to stay at their place? Do they feel as though they have to do that because I'm going to view them some kind of way if they don't? But do they actually want me there? And I went through that for like a good 5 minutes. And then I realized, dude, they're asking you to stay. So just accept the invitation. And I did. But it reminded me that no matter how much work you do on yourself, that doesn't mean that the things that you're feeling go away. It just means that if you're paying attention, there's enough evidence out there that shows that what you're thinking or feeling in those moments when you're feeling anxious and not sure of yourself are actually incorrect. And you have to realize that about your view of the world and how you're viewing women and dating, because there will be a point, if you're paying attention to my materials and you're reading stuff and you're going through my programs and stuff like that, you're going to start to see results with women that you never thought were possible. And if you're not careful, your brain's going to be thinking it's still not possible. Like you not calling her for a few days and then her still wanting to see you, that's not a thing. You being able to not text her all the time, or you being able to put your ideas out there and say the things that you actually want to say and think and feel, and her not push back against it, like that's not a thing. Like she's going to be secretly holding resentment towards you. And even though she says she's only dating you, well, that hasn't been your experience. So this woman must really be out there hooking up with other Chads and Tyrones when you're not around. Like those feelings and thoughts, it's not that they necessarily go away. Like if you do enough work on yourself, they can be very, very lessened, but you still might have moments where, like, for example, you might be dating a woman and she says, oh, me and a couple of coworkers are going out to a happy hour, and you know that there's a guy there. A party might still be like, oh my God, like, I don't want her to go there because there's other guy could potentially, he's got more muscles than she might try to hook this. And then, like, you have to calm yourself down and say, but dude, like, she's like darn near worshiping the ground you walk on. That's not a thing. You're tripping. Now, does that mean that you're always tripping? No, but it does mean that you have to look at your lens of the world up to this point and what experiences you have had that affect the way you feel about yourself, the way you think about yourself, and how you're interacting with the world at large, and realize that sometimes the feelings or things or the gut instincts you think you have about certain situations may not really be there. It could just be based on the fact that you had some crappy stuff that you learned growing up that you haven't unlearned, and therefore, if you haven't done that work, or when you do that work, that those little things and pings and voices are going to still occasionally be there, and that's when you have to rely more on the actual evidence of things that have actually gone on versus what you're thinking and feeling. Because like I said, up to this point, most of my friends and family I find actually want me around. But because I grew up thinking that that's not always the case, I had to do work on myself to realize that there are going to be moments when my friends invite me out, or they want me to go to stay at their place or go to a particular party, and they're giving me this invite. And if I have that voice in my head that says they're just inviting me because they feel sorry for me, or they don't really think that they don't really want me to be there, but they feel obligated, I have to recognize that realistically, people enjoy my company, people like me. That includes my friends, that includes family, that includes women. So if you're out there and you're starting to have a hard time with your transition, because it is a transition, the transition of going from you never got a lot of dates, women didn't really like you, you were considered like a nerdy guy, you were considered that introverted guy in the corner that seems kind of awkward and strange, and now you're a little bit older and women out there are starting to see you as a viable candidate to date, and they believe you're a viable candidate, but you don't, then you got to recognize that's going to affect every single thing as it pertains to you dating. Because if they say a certain thing, you're going to think, well, that's just really them trying to make fun of me, or they try to invite you certain places. You're going to be like, well, they're just inviting me there to try to show up because they know I don't have X, Y, and Z or whatever. Like, you're going to have all these negative thoughts about the actions they're doing when really they're just trying to be friendly to you because they really care about you. Or in the case of dating, they're getting to know you and they like you and they actually want to find reasons to be around you, or they want to ask you certain questions about yourself to get to know you better. But your own hangups could result in you not being able to fully take advantage of those situations and see them for what they are. So I just wanted to point that out. That was just an interesting thing that just happened where I got that invite and I just started thinking these things and like, do they really want me around? Do they really want to invite me? And it's like, oh, I've done work on myself, and yet that little voice still creeps in every so often. But how often does that happen for a guy like you who may be just getting good at their dating journey, but is still wondering why you still might occasionally question if the things that are happening in your dating life now that are good are really happening or not. So take that message for what it wills. Now, if you want to do some work on yourself and really dive deep into how to modify your mindset, how to be able to get the kind of dates that you want as an introvert and be able to ultimately land the woman of your dreams, I highly recommend going to introvertdatingsuccess.com. Check out my coaching program, check out the one-on-one coaching, check out my products, and get the freebie, the girlfriend roadmap checklist, which will help you figure out, if nothing else, the 10-point steps that you need to use during the dating phase to be able to get into a relationship, right? All that stuff is at introvertdatingsuccess.com. You can find all the links in the description below. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Harry Wilmington. I will catch you guys on the next video. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel. I'm out. Peace.
You need to call her on her cell phone when you want to ask her out. Don't text her from your cell phone. Her hearing